You're in the right place at the right time, stretching from the distant spaceports of Batu, Tatooine, and Niamos, and all the way to the bright center of the galaxy at Imperial Center, slamming into your hollow projector like a supercharged nanoparticle of coaxium. This is the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast, and we are here to bring you your needed dose of Star Wars commentary. It is July 20th, 2023, and man, Jason, we have taken a long time to come back, haven't we?
Yeah, big break. Who would have thought that having a second kid would be harder than the first kid?
Yeah, who would
So
have
that's
thought?
that's what I've been dealing with.
And that was just one of several things. It was just like a whole rollout of just stuff we were going through late last summer into fall. You had the second kid, and
I,
then we were recording Jedi Outcast, and
we
some
had
stuff
we
happened.
had recorded Jedi Outcast. It was done,
Yeah,
but I managed to lose everything past level 12, I think. I
that
managed to
sounds
delete
about
it
right.
and leave it in an unrecoverable state. So
And we were, by the time you and I had both played through the game, because I had played on the side, you were basically, we were watching and recording yours for the commentary.
yeah,
But like we were both so sick of the game, I think, and we were like, okay, we need to
I, you
finish
know,
this. We've
I,
got a few more levels,
I
and then
I wouldn't
that
say
happened.
sick of, but
I was,
satisfied, full,
I
I would
I was
say.
completely sick of it.
Oh yeah, well you had to watch it, so
Fork in it,
you
yeah.
had
It
to
was
you
just
had to
like,
play and watch it.
I mean, luckily your gaming was better than mine. You were breezing through some of the levels easier than I was, but oh man, my some of those levels were just tough. And then, so it's one of those things where you just get demoralized when something like that happens, when you lose a project or whatever, and it's like, oh
Yes.
man. And we're like, oh, we'll get back to it, little break, and then another month,
That
another
well
month,
that was
another
supposed
month.
to that was supposed to carry us for like a few months,
Yeah,
and then it just didn't exist.
it didn't exist. I mean, there was so much going on though, and then the cat died here, Techno Puff. There was that whole thing.
Yes.
Went on a trip to Arizona and Utah, and then that delayed some stuff, and then I got to go to Bookman's though. At least there was that, so that was cool. And
Oh yeah, me too.
and then you did too,
Yeah.
not that long ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just a lot of stuff. I
Right.
mean, it's not even worth delving into all of it because it was just like a lot. And sometimes it's good to take a break anyway. Even a long break can be refreshing and nice because then you come back to it, you're ready to jump in. There's been multiple series that have come and gone that we've watched,
Well,
movies.
hey, if
So,
if there was one thing that made me want to jump back into this, it was Willow, the TV series.
yeah, Willow. Let's start with that one. Well, what's your thoughts on Willow, Jason? Because you actually finished it.
It sucked. It was shit. I hated it. And I hate
Yeah.
myself for not stopping when you stopped, to be perfectly honest.
This is the second time in my life that I'm aware where I've intentionally stopped watching something. Now, there's many things in life where you get sidetracked and you lose interest, or you have only a casual interest and you don't finish. That happens all the time.
Hmm.
But the only other time I was watching a series that I supposedly enjoyed and intentionally stopped when it got bad was The Walking Dead. And I've not regretted that since 2016 or whatever. But this one, I felt it was just so reviling with. Now, the first couple episodes were tolerable. I thought they were pretty fine. I mean, how much Willow content have we had over the 35 years? There's almost nothing. So I'll just like, okay, yeah, sure. You know, I know they can't do stuff with Val Kilmer, after his throat cancer and everything, but like, it's
This
got work
this
and
yeah, this is an example. We always joked that um we would watch a movie of Obi-Wan mowing his lawn on
yeah,
Tatooine.
yeah,
That's how thirsty we've always been for Star
yes.
Wars content.
That thirst is starting to diminish in recent years, but
Especially after Obi-Wan the series. I think I would have rather him
yeah,
watch him mow his lawn.
I know. I
Um,
know.
this is a good example of careful what you wish for. And there
Yeah.
is such thing as like jonesing for anything to do with a certain IP, and it can still be bad enough to just completely turn you off. Like
Yeah.
you're right. There's been like that book series, the
Which I
trilogy of
haven't read,
books,
which I've owned for 20 years and haven't read.
which a lot of people I guess don't like. I've
A lot
read.
of people don't like it. The fact it was basically written by Chris Claremont, who was famous for his X-Men comics back
Mm-hmm.
in the 90s,
Yeah.
80s. But based on a story by George Lucas. He supposedly gave him an outline, but a lot of people have wondered at the truth of that, and they've wondered if it's another case of Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson, like, oh yeah, we have Frank Herbert's notes. Yeah, sure you do.
Right.
Um, they've wondered about that because the books are supposedly, by and large, pretty abysmally bad, according to most of fandom.
Right.
But now, having seen Willow, the TV series, maybe they're a masterpiece in comparison. I don't know.
Well, they don't have a
Um,
soundtrack, so they got that going for them.
that's true. There's no,
You could at least just turn on the Willow soundtrack and, be content.
yeah. I guess the equivalent would be if I read those books and then I listened to that Metallica Black Album 30th anniversary box set that had those re-recordings by various millennial and Gen Z artists,
Yeah, yeah.
and then read the book to those, maybe that would be the equivalent. Because some of the song choices were just weird. I mean, I don't have a problem if it's just over, like, say, the end credits or something, but like the songs were bleeding into actual episodic content, and then they had that Crimson and Clover song during the
Uh-huh.
dance of that one episode. It's
That's
like,
when I
what
should
the
have turned
hell?
it off
That was
because
the
the
yeah,
the music was tolerable when it was just contained into the
yeah,
credits, but the
yeah,
second that it bled into the actual episode and in
yeah.
particular
And then
scenes,
there was like that punk rock song that was at the beginning of that same episode.
yeah,
I can't remember the artist. I want to say it was the Runaways, but it was some late 70s, early 80s kind of punk rock song. And I was like, what are they doing? I was literally yelling at the TV, like, no, what are you doing?
right.
Like, this is horrible. Now, again, you know, I'm not going to beat on Willow much after this. I mean, we've been talking to, like, we need to talk about Willow when we come back. This is it. This is going to be it for Willow, basically, except for maybe the occasional joke. But like, really, it would have helped if during the ensuing 35 years there was other media. Like if there
Yes.
had been another, like, say, a TV series or books or comics. I mean, there's been, we had an NES game and, like, a couple things, but not, there was only that 3-book series basically that spun off, and that was a blip. No one really cared about that. It wasn't like Star Wars books. So I feel like if Willow had a sustained IP over the years, this might not have been the blow it was. But when you're kind of touting the return of Willow in a sequel series, and Warwick Davis is coming back, and you've got cameos by other movie characters, like what, Frangine or whatever, one of the brownies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's like no
The
one
other,
else.
the other, the other guy, the other, the other
The other
brownie
brownie had
ready.
the sense to kill
Yeah,
himself before the series was filming his character.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
no,
that
it's
reminds
just
me.
yeah,
I joked that after when the like midway through the series, I think it was when the Crimson and Clover's episode came out.
yeah.
I joked that James Horner must have like flown through a portal and seen into the future. Like he
Just
must
how horrible it
just
was.
like Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny. He flew through a
Yes,
portal, saw what they did to the music in Willow,
yes.
and then just immediately ran his
Crashed into the nearby
ran,
cliff.
ran his plane into the ground. That's how bad it was.
It was either that or he saw James Cameron jacking off with like 50 Avatar sequels and figured, I want no part of this either.
It's like, oh shit, this is gonna go till 2040 or whatever now.
God, and then slapping his name on every Terminator sequel. Oh, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
yeah,
okay. So okay, my main issues with the show, the soundtrack sucked.
sucks.
They really did a disservice to Val Kilmer and Mad Mardigan by,
Yeah,
if you're not going to have them on the series, then just kill them off screen.
yeah.
Don't have them like in some other dimension or whatever. Or I wasn't even really clear if it was actually Mad Mardigan or if it was the the worm or the witch or whatever the hell it was, whichever
And
bad
maybe they
guy.
were leaving that nebulous to where if there was a season 2 or
Right.
something, maybe, who knows?
But
Have it be like Willow sits down at a desk and he looks at a little framed picture of Man Mardigan, just like Sean Connery in Crystal Skull. Where like, it's like, oh, Dad, if only he could be here, and
yeah,
then that's it.
uh,
Something like that.
the other disservice was, I would say, would be using someone else to do his voice.
Hmm.
I guess the blow is softened because it actually was Val Kilmer's son that did the voice, Jack
Okay.
Kilmer.
Okay.
But still,
Credit where it's
like,
due.
just don't have him in it. Like, Val probably would love to do it if he could,
Yeah.
or maybe I still think that they could have had Mad Mardigan in the series and just had him not be able to talk, and it would have been funny if they
That
did
would have
that.
been funny.
Um,
The blowhard who can't talk.
anyway, just don't bring him back. And then the funny thing is now with the whole music thing, the last thing from Willow is "Money for Nothing"
Dire
by
Straits.
Dire Straits. Yeah, it's that's
Oh,
well, you didn't see it, but the
I did not.
scene,
You
there's
told
like
me though.
a book indicating it's like, oh, this is the first chapter in like a series
A
of
chronicle of
stories,
shit.
a chronicle of stories, and then there's like a shot of like the whatever, the chick or
Yeah.
whatever, and then
Yeah.
an army behind her, and then the Ebersisk or whatever behind
Yeah.
her, and all that stuff, and then it's Dire Straits. It's Money for Nothing. Doesn't make
What a
any
way to
sense.
go. Yeah, this is just tonally completely a 180 from what the 1988 Willow is. It's just even the colors, that was another criticism. It's too colorful. It looks like Secret of Mana, like
Yes.
translated into a modern series. And I mean, obviously, there's going to be more CG than the old Willow, but why couldn't they have the color palette be the same? I mean, is are Gen Z people just jonesing for bright colors and everything, even a Willow sequel series? Why, to me, even if I was a young person and I didn't know the original Willow, I'd rather have it match the source material.
Mm-hmm.
If you see a sequel to Alien or Aliens, you don't want a colorful sequel. You want it to match that gritty, grimy, metallic look of the settings. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking. That so
I lay all the blame on, of course, Kathleen Kennedy.
of
She
course,
should always get
yes.
some portion of the blame for all these
Whether
mishaps.
she did anything or not, let's just blame her anyway because everyone
She's in
else is.
charge. She's in charge. And then, of course, John Kasdan. He needs to stay as far away as possible from anything I like ever
It's a
again.
shame because I did, for the most part, enjoy his writing for Solo. I still enjoy Solo a lot. I watch it at least once a year. And whether that was all to his credit or not, he was definitely a significant creative contributor to that movie. And I am so befuddled by the abysmal quality of Willow that now, if I see Kazdan's name on anything going forward, I might possibly avoid it entirely, even if it's Star Wars.
He did write one of the drafts for Dial of Destiny. I don't think
Yeah, that's right. That's
I
right.
don't think he's credited on the final script.
Yeah,
So I don't know how
it
much
was
of
like
his
he was gonna
input,
do it. Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm hoping that the credit that his father built up by coming back for The Force Awakens has now run out, and that we don't
Yeah,
have to suffer Kasdan Jr.
yeah.
much longer.
Agreed. And one thing I will briefly touch on, I mean, it could open a whole can of worms, but I don't care. Honestly, the show was too woke. And I am not someone who sees wokeness everywhere. Like a lot of people have their woke glasses on and it's just everything is woke. I mean, I think there is too much wokeness here and there around Hollywood, especially these last few years, but this was tainted with too much wokeness. And there's a way to be inclusive and there's a way to be realistic in depicting racial diversity and gender diversity in movies. This was not how you do it, not at all. So
Yeah, I usually bristle at wokeness myself, and I would say that Willow uh, came off as pretty woke.
It's not the
Um,
most woke thing I've ever seen, but
well,
it was
it's
fairly woke,
with
I'll say.
with
The
Willow,
spectrum.
with the Willow series. That wasn't the problem.
No,
Like
that really
the
wasn't.
problems
That was just the cherry on
overshadowed.
the shit cake.
Yeah, exactly. As the wokeness is the least of its
It really
problems.
is. It really is.
So
Because for one thing, I love seeing chicks make out. I mean, that's great. The ones in Willow, not so much. That's just me.
well,
Um,
the
yeah.
last thing I'll say about Willow is I feel I honestly feel sorry for Warwick because he's
Yeah.
been waiting a long time for this. I was excited about it. I'm sure he was excited about it.
I know.
One day, maybe when he doesn't give a shit anymore and he doesn't need any work,
Yeah.
we can get. I'm curious what his thoughts are on the series.
We'll get him on the podcast.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Um, it's just a waste. That series is just a waste. That's the sad part about it.
Yeah, it is. And what it's a essential part of our childhoods, just like Indiana Jones and Star Wars. Like it's really a key movie. I mean, I saw the original in the theater. I have amazing memory, and it was always important to me. I would have loved to seen a sequel all these years. I mean, but this is what we got, and even the fact that I stopped after 3 episodes, I believe, maybe 4, and walked away, I have no feeling of even wanting to touch the rest. Like, I'm good with what I got. In fact, I wish I could go back and erase my memory
Well,
of what I did see.
Disney has done you a favor and taken it off of Disney Plus. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
They don't
Thank you, Disney.
it's so bad they don't want to pay anyone residuals for that.
They didn't want it stinking up the place with other poop smell
Yeah.
anywhere. So now, one brief thing I will also say in regards to criticisms of Willow now that it's done and out and everything. Because there's with Disney and especially Kathleen Kennedy and Star Wars, you get these people constantly criticizing things they hate, obviously on social media, and they keep coming back and they keep bashing Disney over and over needlessly. Literally on social media, I think there's been 2 times I left a comment with other fans talking about it and basically giving a summation of my criticisms. I have not talked about it since on social media. So, what I'm trying to say is you can hate something, you can criticize it, and you can also move the fuck on with your life. There's
Yes.
no sense in, like, in other words, if you hate 7 out of 9 Disney TV series and movies since 2015, what makes you think that number 10 is going to be any better? Like if you're hating all these and you hate Kathleen Kennedy that much, why even bother? Just jump ship, say goodbye, and just enjoy what you got. There's still the past. There's still the good stuff. You don't need to constantly beat things, to death. It's just
Yeah,
no one wants to see that.
but John, Kylo said we have to let go of the past. We have to bury it or whatever the hell he
That's
said.
true. That's true.
I can't remember if he was wearing a shirt in that scene.
He was in that scene,
Oh,
thankfully.
yeah. Okay.
So you need to see it again. You need to reassess The
Ah,
Last Jedi.
damn it. Nope. It's too soon. It's too
Too
soon.
soon. Hashtag too soon. 6 years later. Okay. I think that sums everything up on Willow.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, let's talk about Andor. It was
Right. You're going from the lowest low to the highest high
the
right now.
highest high. Uh, it's funny because Andor, there's the potentiality to really review it and do a breakdown of every episode, and it was a long first season. It was 12 episodes. Most Star Wars series have been 7 or 8 episodes. As far as live action, and it's funny. I think the consensus at this point, I would say to most fans, is that this is among possibly the greatest live action Disney Star Wars content we've even had. Um, I say a consensus because there's still nitpickers and there's still people tearing it in a new a-hole. There's no
Oh,
real,
well,
real
I
point to,
mean, I mean, it's only matched by Rogue One in my
but
mind.
yeah, it really is because people. That's another one people still are gravitating to and still enjoying and reassessing because it got kind of lost in the the afterglow of the sequel movies when Rogue One came out. So it's nice that people are still revisiting it or discovering that in itself. And um, the first thing I want to get out and say before delving too deeply into it is, and this took me a while to come to this conclusion, but I'm not bullshitting. As a Star Wars fan of 40 some years, uh, in my opinion, Andor is the greatest live action thing that is Star Wars since The Empire Strikes Back. I'm not bullshitting. I am not bullshitting whatsoever.
Okay,
What's so
Jess.
funny? What's so
Okay,
funny?
Jess.
Yeah, I know. I know. That is, I knew you were going to go with that route too with this comment, but seeing it again more closely together over the course of just a few days, I binged the whole thing, and that helps it a lot. It's not so strung out, and you can really see the threads connecting the story and everything.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's perfect by any means. It's very nihilistic and very dark, and I think that's great. I love stories like that. But as far as the quality of the story, acting, editing, I think this is the best realized depiction of the Star Wars universe, aside from Rogue One, in a very long time. So
Yeah, I could see that, and I laugh because it's such a bold statement, but I can
it
I can
is.
understand where you're coming from and what you're getting at. Um, I
Yeah,
would
so suck it,
say
Return of the Jedi.
I would I would liken it to, it's very well made and very well written. My main issue with Andor is sort of, it's missing a je ne sais quoi. There is some secret sauce that's missing in it. Even though it is so good and so well written. Even
Give me an example of something that could have made that je ne sais quoi.
Aliens, for one.
Needed more aliens.
But that's like
That was a criticism.
that's a nitpick thing.
The
I
other
would
thing was
liken
not
it,
enough droids. People were saying not enough droids, not enough
right.
aliens.
Uh, and those are just things. Those are like check boxes, like droids,
Yeah,
aliens, whatever,
right.
lightsabers, whatever.
Stormtroopers.
I would say I would liken it to, um, my my sister in law showed me a he's like a YouTuber chef. He has a book, and he will remake fast food with better ingredients and make a better
But good.
version. Yeah, exactly. And so I was like interested in it. I could see like the thing he did, like a I think
Mm-hmm.
he did like a McRib, or he did like some sort of not a Whopper, but some other sandwich at
Yeah,
Burger King, and he made it better. And I was like, I could see that being better and stuff. But that's like McDonald's and Burger King, right? But then
yeah.
he got to In and Out, and he remade an In and Out burger, and I'm watching it and I was getting really pissed because he was changing the ingredients. Like, the ingredients on
Yeah.
paper were better, right? He used
Mm-hmm.
better cheese.
Yeah.
He used his own, like, Thousand Island dressing recipe or something like that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember. Like, he
Mm-hmm.
remade animal style fries and stuff. And he's like, "Oh, this is so much better than In and Out." And I bristled at it because I was like, "Well, then you didn't make
You
an
didn't
In
make
and
it out.
Out sandwich or a burger.
Yeah.
Like, you made something that is better. It's like it belongs in
A museum.
a, a Chevron rated restaurant or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's missing what makes, because In and
The
Out's
thing.
like,
The thing.
yeah, it's just, so it's like that, right?
I can see
It's kind
that.
of,
That's a good analogy because the way, okay, for example, in let's compare Andor to the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is kind of it's the series on Disney Plus that the casuals jump onto because it's got Grogu, it's got Mandalorian armor, and at this point it's codified. It's well known. It's for all the casuals. It's the
yeah,
popcorn, it's the fluff. And I
right.
love it for that because it's
Yes.
classically Star Wars. That's the ingredients of Star Wars. It's just like action, fights, chases, lightsabers, stormtroopers, this and that. Andor is not that really. It's not popcorn. It's not fluff. It is doing its own thing on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And it does what it does perfectly, because I don't think any media should be a repetition of the same thing elsewhere. Like, if you have the popcorn thing and you love it, that's great. When you're in the mood for that, that's awesome. When you're in another mood for another thing that you might want to be a little deeper or better, quote unquote, you got this other thing over on the side. And I think people forget that. It's like, we don't need it all to be the same. I don't want Andor to be like Mandalorian and vice versa. And I think sometimes
You don't
people
want
were,
Lizzo showing up in Andor season
that would be
2.
really awesome, actually. But
Her character too. She'd be like a little child or whatever.
I know,
Well,
right?
it's a spectrum. I mean, that's what I would say about it, and that's why, I'm not really like criticizing the show or like trying to knock it down.
That's all right. You can't. It's perfect.
Right. Clearly. But it is, if there is a spectrum, it is on the serious side, which is
It is.
incidentally exactly what the anthology movies in my mind were supposed to be, an
Yeah.
exploration of different types of stories and different types
Mm-hmm.
of movies. It just so happens that the anthology movies have been closer to what the mainline Skywalker saga movies
Should have
should
been
have been, in my
fun
mind
popcorn,
anyway.
fun popcorn escapism movies
Well, and I mean,
as a whole.
I would say that well, the sequels had issues. We don't need to open that Pandora's box at this very
Let's beat
moment.
that bloody pulp again.
I would say they are popcorn movies in their own ways. There's other issues with those. They just, in my mind and a lot of people's minds, they are lower on the popularity scale than I would say Rogue One and Solo. Um,
It's because they had a hot chick floating 30 rocks all at once.
yes. Which never, what, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into it. I was gonna say something about the theories about Ray being a Kenobi and stuff, but
That's all
that's,
right. We'll close that box for now. Don't
yeah.
worry. We'll repeat it again later.
Anyway, it's the
Yeah,
spectrum. Andor is on the serious side, but it's still there. It's, I would say though, it's, at least for me, it's definitely not the best.
thing since The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, as far as a Star Wars movie is concerned,
Hmm.
it is very
Yeah,
competently written and stuff.
I have thought about this. I mean, that's what I'm going with. The glow has passed. It's been enough time now. I did revisit it. I didn't just come to this conclusion one day. It was kind of like, is it really? I had to ask myself this. What do I really think this? Is it better or as good as Return of the Jedi? Because to me, Return of the Jedi was always the number three, kind of behind Empire and A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
And
You
I
goddamn
think
Ewok hater.
I know, right? What have I become? But to me, Return of the Jedi's highs are actually heightened by everything that came later also. So I'm not begrudging that, but it has Return of the Jedi has its own problems, just like Andor does. Even Empire has its own problems. None of this stuff is perfect. There's always something to nitpick. But what I love about Andor specifically, among a few things, is the fact that it made the Empire scary again, like really scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't even think of anything. Maybe TIE Fighter that really showed the Empire as being as twisted and brutal, and not just in a oppressive way, like with battles and stuff and crushing,
TIE Fighter the
innocents.
game, right? You're referring,
Yeah,
yeah,
TIE Fighter the game.
right.
But also like psychologically, how it changes people's perceptions and societies into what it wants them to think. Um, the stuff with, everything that happens on that main planet, that Cassian grows up on, and with his adoptive mother and everything. I mean, it was just it was just written so well, and to have Mon Mothma finally given a personality. This is a character that we've seen in dozens and hundreds of video games, and she's always just kind of been a cameo supporting character, just kind of someone to remind you of Return of the Jedi. Yes, she's the leader of the rebellion, and yes, she used to be a senator, but we don't really get to know her. She's just basically a blank slate, and I love that finally we get to know Mon Mothma, and the fact that they got Genevieve O'Reilly again
Mm-hmm.
who did her in Rogue One and the deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith. Um, that's just great. And seeing her husband and her daughter and how they disagree. And I had been looking forward to something with the Imperial Senate for years. I mean, we get these little things here and there, short stories and such, but this is the kind of thing I wanted to delve into in a series and to take that time to really do it proper, kind of like Game of Thrones or something, where they can really delve into the backstabbing and all the political stuff that goes on. So, and I am biased because I enjoy the pre A New Hope era and the formation of the rebellion, which this series starts to pick up on. But yeah, and everything with Luthen and all that stuff. I mean,
You know
gosh,
what
talk about
what kind of surprised me about Mon Mothma is that she didn't know how to launder money. You know what I mean? She's a senator.
hmm
She's a politician. She doesn't know how to launder money. Completely took me out of it. I can't
Well, I don't know
suspend
if she
disbelief.
didn't. I guess you're right in a sense. She didn't know
I mean,
how
I mean,
to
I'm
launder
just
money.
joking. She's a good senator, so she
Yeah,
shouldn't necessarily know how to
I
launder
mean,
money, right? Or how
the
to
thing
move
is,
money
like,
around, and
I know the basics of how to launder money, but would I ever delved into the actual process of it? No. So maybe it was like that. She knew of it. She knew that maybe she had to do it, but she was trying to avoid that line of thinking at all costs or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I was just making a joke. Obviously, she's supposed to be, um, you know, uh, a good, like I was saying, a good senator,
Yeah.
like an honest senator.
Yeah.
So she's really just trying to
Right.
make the galaxy a better place. She wouldn't necessarily have,
Yeah.
any uh, dark market
Right.
entanglements or anything or
It's
experience. So
interesting though that Chandrilla does have apparently a criminal empire of some sort, like with that guy that comes in and says, "Oh yeah, let's have our kids meet."
oh yeah, and
It's
apparently
it's
they
just
do arranged marriages and stuff
arranged
too.
marriages. That's part of their culture, I guess. Kind of goes
Yeah.
back a ways.
And they poo poo same sex relationships as well.
That's
Apparently,
true. That's true, and that's a way. I think that was done better on Andor than it was in Willow.
yeah,
It wasn't highlighted as like, hey, look at this thing right here, look how amazing it is. It was just kind of part of the background of the characters. It was just whatever, like that's the way it should be all the time.
yeah,
Just have it be there. We don't need to highlight it every time it's featured. So um I mean, yeah, like I said, there's little things you could nitpick if you want to. It's like, oh, people were saying, how dare they use machine guns, on that one planet, because they're scrounging whatever weapon they have.
I will admit I still have a problem about that, but it's
But
fine. I could.
guns are used in Star Wars. Maybe that was a blaster. I don't know.
It
But
just.
bullet weapons do exist in Star
It's.
Wars. The role
I
playing game
think.
had them.
Right. I think it's less to do with whether or not it's a projectile weapon,
Yeah. Yeah.
a ballistic gun,
But
I
even
guess you
if
would
it is a
say.
blaster, Han's blaster looks like a German Mauser
Well, but it's still
pistol.
modified. I think that's the issue. It's just
It's not
it's
modified
so
enough.
clearly not modified.
But here's the thing though. When people were starting to criticize that with the first trailer that dropped. This is the kind of stuff that this is why some of these people can't get a girlfriend. And I'm not even joking. Like you need to like let this stuff go. It's just sad. It's really sad. Now don't get me wrong. We've said yeah, it needs more droids, more aliens, whatever. But we're not like harping on those things like, "Oh my god, it's ruined because there's no aliens." It's just whatever. It's a thing. There's I love the Thrawn trilogy. I could probably find things I don't like about the Thrawn trilogy. You know, there's all kinds of stuff in everything. So, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, well, I could find something wrong with everything in Star Wars.
I know you
Um,
can.
that the gun thing irks me, but it's not. Obviously, it's not gonna. I'm not gonna turn it off. It's like I didn't get to that part and then turn it off, like you did with Willow. Couldn't
Crimson
even
and
finish
Clover.
it. Couldn't even finish it. Um,
That's how offended I was.
that
But at the same time, I'm not following the page and arguing with every single fan that likes the thing. That's the
oh,
thing. It's like, why can't people just like something? You don't have to like it, but why can't someone else like it?
oh, but
I don't.
that's an issue with the internet in general. Or that
It really is.
I shouldn't say the internet in general. That is an issue with social media as it stands now
Yeah.
in general. So
Yeah.
Twitter, Facebook, all that Web 2.0 stuff.
What I don't like when people criticize things is being intellectually dishonest. If you're slipping lies into your criticism and misperceptions or twisted perceptions that are not accurate, that's where I draw the line with people. And so, you know, the, it's just one of those things. But anyway, that's a whole tangent. Um, so overall, you liked Andor?
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed it. I would say that for me personally, probably not for most other people, the first half of the series really dragged for me
Hmm.
until they did the heist,
Yeah.
got that done with, and then when they moved on to like the prison, and then there was more Coruscant
Oh
stuff, and
man, and that's a whole other thing.
that's when
Yeah.
things really picked up for me.
Andy Circus and the whole,
Snoke,
yeah, this the origin of Snoke.
that's got to be Snoke. He got messed up trying to
That's my
swim.
head canon. That's my head canon. Yeah, he bashed his face on a pipe on the way down. He's got that weird hole in his cheek. That's what it is. So I think when you see those episodes again, it's that segment you said dragged,
Hmm.
it's going to be a lot smoother. That's what I noticed on my second viewing. Because I also thought the first few episodes kind of dragged, and
Well,
there,
yeah, there is
yeah,
sort of I I mean this is kind of a tangent, but a short one. I've noticed when I rewatch stuff, and this is kind of the same way when I go somewhere new. If I drive somewhere new and I've never been there before, and I'm like, oh man, when am I going to get there? When am I going to get there? And then I get
mm-hmm,
there, and then the next time I go, the whole trip seems shorter because
yep,
I anticipate everything.
yeah,
Kind of the same thing when you watch something, especially when it drags, like it did for
mm-hmm.
me. I was like, when is this part? Like, is this going to be the whole series or what? And so I anticipate when I rewatch the show that that whole part will feel a lot faster.
That's why when I see Luke pumping the blue milk out of the teat and he
Oh
takes
my
that
god.
swig, I look at it now as the greatest moment in cinematic history
I
out of
try
reassessing.
I try and fail every day to keep that scene out of my head, but it
And now
just
I've put it back in.
you put it back in, the internet puts it back in.
Yep. Yeah.
God damn it.
Well, it's in my opinion that's a better scene than the floating Leia Mary Poppins
Oh
moment.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Anyway,
Anyway, laundry
um
list of sequel things we hate.
I really like seeing Saw Gerrera. That was a
Yeah,
treat.
there's scenes. Oh man, so good.
I want man, I would, as much as I like Andor, I almost would rather just see a series centered on Luthen and
He's a great character. He's my favorite new character, I
his
will say.
dealings and getting the rebellion going,
Oh
which
man,
kind of it I really wish they would recanonize
Garm.
Garmbel
Yeah,
Iblis from Legends.
you
It's
never
fine.
know.
He could be different. He doesn't need to be the
Corellian
orchestrator.
senator.
I mean, he should be the Carillion senator, but he doesn't have to be the architect of the rebellion and stuff. He could
He
be
was
a
one of the three because it was the Corellian Treaty.
right,
So it was the Corellians, the Alderaanians through Bale, and then the Chandrillans through Mon Mothma that
right,
created the Corellian Treaty, which in Legends was basically seen at the end of The Force Unleashed when you kind of beat the game. That was the first fully realized story version of the Corellian Treaty.
right. It was only ever
Um,
referenced before that.
yeah, yeah, it was only referenced, and I believe that originally came from the Rebel Alliance source book from West End Games, and then it got thrown into the technical journal and all kinds of other stuff. But
Yeah.
it would be great to see a version of it though next season as they get closer to A New Hope because it's going to jump ahead a few years and
I would
or yeah,
I would just be fine seeing Iblis show up. He doesn't even have to be like a main
Right.
component or orchestrator of the treaty or anything.
Just have him be there, kind of like Pelion in season 3 of Mandalorian when he had that little cameo.
Exactly. That's all
Like
it
that was
takes.
that is all it takes, and because that was like,
12
oh man,
or not 12.
Pelion.
It's been over 10 years that Disney has had this, the IP, the
Yeah,
franchise.
yeah,
They've had it. They've tried, ignoring legends and stuff. Every single time they throw us a bone, people get excited. And they
it's
still
true.
haven't fully realized. I mean, I think certain people have realized it within Lucasfilm or always knew. Like
Yeah,
Filoni, I feel like has always known, but
he knows. He knows how to give
but
me a chub.
he well, you like wolves too,
But yeah, I
and
like
men
wolves.
men in hats. Uh I don't want to segue into the Ahsoka trailer and stuff yet, so I'll leave.
Yeah,
I
we'll
won't
talk about
mention
that a bit
anything, but
later.
um, but every time they throw us a bone, like as bad as Kenobi was, the sort of the stuff they threw in there, and even hinting
Hmm.
at Corrin, the
Yeah,
kid being Corrin, that was
yeah,
like, I mean, that was enough to like, oh yeah, give me more, come on.
like drooling.
I know.
And the
That's how
things written on the
that's how
wall.
thirsty. Oh
That's
yeah,
how
yeah, yeah.
thirsty we are.
Yeah,
The
for
things written on the
legends.
wall. There's all these like Children of the Jedi and like Belsavis, and then which
Mm-hmm.
Belsavis got mentioned again in Andor when they were shipping him to the prison planet. They kind of threw out that name. Another guy on another ship was going to Belsavis,
Yeah,
but
that's I would say that's one of those
anyways,
ones where you're like, I could have done with something other than Belsavis, but okay, that's pretty good.
yeah. How about Munto Kudro from the Crystal Star? We'll reference that one next time. But actually, you know what? It is when these kind of like forgotten books get referenced. It's not. I mean, it's great seeing Thrawn stuff and Pelion and Thrawn and all these other things, but it's those little weird offshoot things that get referenced, like the Lando Calrissian adventures in
Mm-hmm.
Solo, or
Mm-hmm.
even I don't know if you really call Dark Empire a like minor thing, but in the Ahsoka trailer, there's something we'll talk about a little later from that. And so yeah, it's just one of those things. You're right. When they throw us a bone, it's great. And if Andor can do that in season 2 and tie together more things, who knows? Maybe we'll see something about the X-wing and its development, or the Incom technicians stealing the blueprints and then escaping.
Even if it's just referenced, because it was kind of nice. It was totally unnecessary. It didn't really need to be there, but just to show, like, oh, by the way, what everybody was making on the prison planet
Hmm.
was this
Yeah,
particular component of the Death Star,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
just kind of there. It doesn't really mean anything other than like,
They're the architects of their own destruction,
kind of,
as
yeah.
far
I
as
mean,
Cassian,
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was kind of metaphorical in a way,
Yeah, but it was so like, um, I don't.
inconsequential,
Yeah, well, I mean,
sort of.
I want to say unnecessary, but it was nice.
But
And
that's
then
why it
it,
was after the credits anyway.
yeah,
It was a little bonus,
and you can pull from that what you want, like the whole like, oh, Andor's he he is atoning without even really knowing, he's like atoning for
Hmm.
his his part in creating the
Yes,
Death Star, even though
exactly.
he's not really responsible. But
He's the architect of the Death Star.
right, yeah, clearly,
Forget those other guys. It's all him. No, that was interesting. I have high hopes for season 2 that Andor is going to be great, and I think we're going to be unpacking quite a bit of it in the days and months ahead.
yeah, I'm excited. Um, one last thing about Andor that I think is funny that I've observed is Tony Gilroy seems to get, now he manages to get all of the credit for Rogue One,
Hmm.
especially in light of Andor being so good. Because he'll,
Yeah.
he'll be like, oh, the I can't remember how they credit him in Andor, because he came in and directed and wrote all those reshoots for the climax for like the third
You
the
talking about
third
Rogue
act,
One?
or Rogue One. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, but now he just gets all the credit, and Gareth Edwards gets like nothing. Although
Minimal.
in his new movie that's coming out, they do mention that he was the director or creator, I don't remember, of Rogue One in that.
That's a good question. I need to see that trailer again for the upcoming sci-fi movie he's doing.
Anyway, that's
The
just a
creator.
it's just
The
a
creator, ironically.
I know, right? The creator from the creator of.
Yes,
Anyway, that's just a funny little observation I've made, is how much credit Gilroy gets
that
for
is
Rogue
true.
One.
That is true. Although we will not negate Gareth's pros to that movie. I definitely enjoyed everything he contributed to it as director, and
I
I
would
liked
be
his
in.
2014 Godzilla too.
I I love that. I would be interested in seeing an Edwards cut at some point.
Yes,
We'll never get it, but you know, we
in 30
never
years.
we never thought we'd get a Snyder cut of Justice
That's
League.
true.
So,
That's true.
but that took AT&T telling Warner Brothers what to do to make that happen. I don't think Disney has someone coming in and telling them what to do with
Yeah, there's no
Lucasfilm.
like
So
General Electric, tapping on Disney's door. Disney is the one that taps on other people's
yeah.
doors.
Anyway,
Very true.
okay, let's move on to Indy. Indiana
It
Jones and the
came out.
Dial of Destiny. Finally,
It finally came out. And did it suck, Jason?
it didn't suck.
Not like Willow, but not really at all.
No.
It was good. I felt like Indiana Jones and he was good. And I went in with very, very low expectations.
Oh, you did. I don't know that when we talked about it before we saw it, I don't know if I had gathered what your expectations were. Mine were, I I would say that they were really low. I
That's
was
because of
trying,
Crystal Skull,
you know,
which I enjoy more in recent years, as I've mentioned
it definitely aged
the
better.
podcast.
Well, we had a discussion about that, and my point about Crystal Skull was there's two movies missing in the franchise leading into Crystal Skull. So, um, the issue that Crystal Skull has is that there is no transition visually, tonally
Yeah,
from The Last Crusade to Crystal Skull. So
right.
it's
Right.
very jarring going
Mm-hmm.
from 1989 Spielberg to
Yeah,
2008 Spielberg. That is
with
a
his weird filter over his
yeah.
stuff around that time.
Not only do you have nearly 20 years between them as far as his filmmaking style and everything and the
Yeah,
cameras and everything, but you also have Schindler's List in the middle of it, and that changed him as a filmmaker and
yeah,
stuff in other
that's
ways
true.
other than like visual style and
That's
stuff.
very true. You could almost see Jurassic Park as being the last of his old style, and
Yeah.
Schindler's List as being the first of his new post Schindler style.
So anyway, this isn't about Crystal Skull. This
It's the
is about Dial of Destiny.
Spielberg
So
podcast.
yeah, I was trying to be really neutral going into the movie because uh there is a track record, certainly up to this point, of Lucasfilm screwing the pooch,
Yeah.
Disney screwing the pooch on these Lucasfilm properties.
I hadn't heard.
I would say
This is news.
that it was okay. There's nothing major in it that I can tear down. There's nothing I can point to and say like this is
Yeah.
an abomination or whatever.
Yeah. There's no Metallica song showing up over the
I
end credit
I
sequence.
I know a lot of people in general have a problem with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and I could point to her as an issue, but it's not. It's
I'm
not.
not a I'm not a humongous fan of her, but honestly, having seen the movie and not listening to any of that hubbub beforehand, really, other than knowing it existed, I didn't even delve into any of that. And then I just saw the movie, and I'm kind of like, what the fuck were people talking about? Because I'm like, we are talking about woke stuff earlier. I do see woke stuff. It exists, but I just didn't see really anything in this movie that related to her wokeness.
It wasn't that bad. I know that there was a lot of a worry or rumors about her like sort of supplanting Indy at the end of the movie or whatever. Apparently, there were reshoots for the ending.
Is it either there was, or that's what people want to think happened, which
Well,
could be a thing with how people think.
again, that is certainly something that Lucasfilm has been known to do recently. Is massive
Well,
amounts of reshoots. So
yes, but to be fair, every movie just about has reshoots,
yeah, for sure, for
almost.
sure. That in of itself isn't an issue, and whatever. If that was something that was going to happen, it ended up on the cutting room floor, and it didn't happen. So
I mean, they might have even made fun of it with the very end, the last shot on the zoom out, where you see someone grab Indy's hat. Spoiler alert. And they pull it in off the clothesline. And
yes,
I think that might have been a little like nod, like, "Oh, who is it? Is it Indy or is it someone else?"
well, it better be
They might
fucking
have been a
Indy.
little wink at the audience.
It better be Chris Pratt with my and it better be my idea for bringing Chris Pratt into the Indiana Jones franchise, but we won't talk about that right now.
Maybe
Um,
it was short round.
um, yeah, apparently, like Karen Allen was
Shorty, where's my hat?
part of the reshoots, at least
Yeah.
from what I've read. So
Okay. All right.
potentially, I don't know. And that the Indy 5 has had pretty long production. It was supposed to come out in
Yeah.
2019, and then
Yeah.
it got delayed, and then COVID delayed it even further. And
And it seemed to be people were jumping off. It was like Spielberg jumped and then Mangold took over. And then wasn't Lucas attached at one point for a production
I
credit?
don't.
I
Well,
can't
he
remember.
was an executive producer, but that
Okay.
just means he gets
That's whatever. He
that
slapped
just
his
means he
name
gets
on it.
paid. He's a creator, so he gets paid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't think he was ever fully attached, and
Yeah.
certainly probably not after what happened with the sequels.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and from what I've read, there's been some issues and contentiousness, if that's a word, with him uh, and the production of Indy 5.
Hmm.
Like I think Spielberg said in some interviews that uh, they wanted to keep either they being Lucasfilm wanted Kennedy or whoever wanted to
Yeah.
keep Lucas off the set so he wouldn't influence the
He's
ending
like
or
he's like
whatever.
a rabid dog.
Yeah. Um,
Put him on a leash with his
but
little
I,
coffee
but
cup.
I don't know if any of that's true because I've read some of the after the movie came out. I read some of the leaked quote unquote leaked stories, or alternate shoots or whatever the leaked story stuff from before the movie came out, and some of it's like very fantastical and like I'm like I don't even
Mhm.
like this seems like somebody made this crap up or
Well,
whatever.
that's partly why I don't even read stuff anymore, because whether it exists or not, it puts a certain perception into my head before I see something. And then when I don't see what I was expecting to see, then I'm like, huh, what was that about?
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing.
But you weren't expecting to see Ghost Molaram, the ghost of Molaram show up.
Whoa, that actually wouldn't have been that bad as long as I used an escape hatch and laughed on the way out. I don't know why you'd
I
have to
think
as a ghost,
I think
but
if I saw that, I'd need an escape hatch out of the fucking theater. Just take me out.
under your seat, just hit a button.
Just roll out.
It
Um.
just ejects you into the car.
Anyway.
So we
So
went to go see the movie together.
yes, I
We all
saw
met
it.
up again.
I saw it the night before,
That's right.
and it was good enough for me to see back to back.
Yeah,
So I saw it again with you and Nicole.
at the good old Arlington, where I saw Last Crusade back in '89. First movie I saw there, right before Batman, and saw Crystal Skull there. So it was only appropriate to meet up here in Camarillo, and then I'll go to Santa Barbara, see it there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's just a tradition kind of thing, and yeah, you know, my expectations were, like I said, pretty low. I mean, it's an Indiana Jones movie. It's not high art, so I wasn't like, as long as it has Harrison Ford being Harrison Ford and some, nice chase scenes and traveling and adventure, I'm pretty easy to please. Um, I don't really think there was the equivalent of a CG monkey scene in this, um,
No.
or even something. I can't say as wacky as Space Aliens, but then I'm thinking, well, they did go through a portal back in time, but I guess that is kind of on that level. But it didn't really bother me. I mean, I saw Nazis melting in Raiders of the Lost Ark from a bunch of spirits coming out of an ark. So I mean, I don't know. Indie indie movies have always gotten a little wacky near the end. So
Yeah, wackiness is never mystical slash religious
yeah,
slash
yeah,
paranormal stuff happening in Indiana Jones movies.
yeah.
Never
And an
bothered me.
invisible bridge, in Last Crusade. I'm like, okay, yeah,
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 I've never had a problem with that. So
yeah.
the fact that they went through a time portal, that doesn't bother me at all. Like, in fact, to me, I've thought about this recently. I feel like I would be less interested in Indiana Jones if it didn't have that
Right.
mystical slash paranormal component to it.
Right. And certainly the first half of the movie, or at least the first quarter or third, maybe, where Indy is in New York City and it's 1969, and there's all this modern stuff going on around him, the Apollo landing on the moon, hippies, all this stuff. I was a little concerned how they would handle that. I mean, just because we're so used to seeing Indy in the 30s or the 40s and the 50s in Crystal Skull, and that's kind of an old enough time period to where he like quote unquote belongs. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a little jarring to see modern, crusty Clint Eastwood Indy, get off my lawn,
Yeah.
to the hippies. But I think what helped ease that in is recognizing that there is a contrast culturally to Indy, quote unquote, now to then. And what helps you is the flashback scene, because not only does it set up the story, but they did a pretty darn good job de-aging Harrison Ford for the 1945 portion. So
Yes, I was impressed. I
yeah,
didn't. I thought I could tell it was a little off,
you
but
can always tell,
but
but like
not as much as anything I've ever seen before. I would say
that's
if it's
that's yeah.
off, it was off by less than 5%, where
It,
anything else I've ever seen where they've de-aged or deep
it's getting
faked
to that
somebody.
point. It's getting to that point where I think in a few more years, or certainly in the next decade, it's going to get to the point to where if I see someone de-age and I don't know the actor and I don't know their real age, and then I go, oh yeah, that someone tells me that was CG, then I'll be amazed. Because then if you can't know beforehand, it's easier to be fooled, I
Yeah.
guess.
It
But
actually a big part of it too, with even the 5% or less that it was off. A part of that I feel like was um, just the fact that it, even when they pull the sack off of his head,
mhm.
it's almost like, oh, it's young Indy, like the way that the shot is and his reaction and stuff.
Yeah,
It's almost like it's highlighting that.
right.
And I don't know if that's just because it's not actually highlighting it. It's just in my head. It's highlighted because
It was the
the thing.
algorithm giving you how Harrison Ford would react to
But
that
even
thing.
even like him, kind of the way he was looking around and stuff
Yeah.
seemed off by a couple of percent. Anyway,
Yeah, there will always be improvements.
it
It's like Luke with season 2 of Mando versus Luke in Book of Boba Fett. It was a lot better.
right.
So
So I mean, yeah, it was really good.
yeah, yeah. It was nice to see Nazis again too, wasn't it?
Uh,
Isn't that an ironic statement I just said? It was nice to see
I
Nazis.
would say no, personally. Um,
It is a little old hat.
However,
I can see that side of it, but it was
only
nostalgic.
only so far in that it was old hat. It was nice to see them in a different context of like post World War II
Yeah.
and sort of, an ex-Nazi holding on to, and trying to bring back, um, you know, the Reich.
They should have gone down to Argentina and found Hitler and the Glock, and they could
oh yeah, the Die
the flying
Glock,
saucer.
yeah, which apparently was potentially the MacGuffin in early drafts, maybe.
You mentioned that. It is interesting to consider. I would have been. It could have tied into Crystal Skull in that way with Roswell and all that
I
stuff.
know, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, and I appreciated the sort of uh, the unexpected motivation and plan from uh, from the villain. What was his name? What was Mad's
Uh,
character's name?
I can't remember
Voller.
it.
Voller.
Yeah, Voller. Yeah.
Um, his plan was not exactly what you would expect. Normally, you
Yes.
expect like he'd go back and like help the Reich, help Hitler, but he
Yeah.
wanted to go back and take Hitler out and take over. So,
Right. Right.
which then is kind of an interesting play on the whole like, oh, if you had a time machine, would you go back and like kill baby Hitler to
Right.
avoid World
Almost
War
like
II? World
Man in
War
the High
II.
Castle kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get a Wolfenstein crossover with Indiana Jones.
Maybe actually, uh, coincidentally, um, who is it? It's the new Indiana Jones game that's coming out. Um,
Yes, I've been hearing things.
it's being developed by Machine Games, who did all of the new Wolfenstein games.
Oh, and I haven't played any of those, but they look amazing, and I really want to buy that one that came out in 2017, I believe it was. It's funny, I'm like, yeah, that was a new game. It was like 6 years ago.
All right.
But those look great. Those new Wolfenstein
Yeah,
games look amazing.
but that's just a little aside
Yeah.
coincidence.
Yeah, new indie game coming.
So it was, it was. I would say it would normally be tired to see Nazis again.
I could see that side of
Because that
things.
was always what I really liked about Temple of Doom, is that it's very self-contained, not
Yes,
connected
it's
to
the
the other
greatest.
movies.
It's the
It's the
greatest
best, in my opinion. It is the best Indiana Jones
of the
movie.
original trilogy. I know that's controversial. We like the dark horse of the Indiana movies, but I don't know. To me, that was always a favorite.
Yes.
Uh,
Um,
yeah,
and yeah, I'd say it was a serviceable Indiana Jones movie.
yeah.
It didn't offend
It
too
wasn't
much.
bad. It wasn't bad. I can't say now. Is there things that we can nitpick? And yeah, of course. But like, did I walk out of the movie getting everything I expected in an Indiana Jones movie? Yeah, I did. It was just a nice piece of popcorn entertainment, escapism for 2 hours and 15 minutes or whatever it was.
How pissed though? Honestly, how pissed do you think um, Lucasfilm Disney is that basically the movie, it took them however long to make it, develop it, boom, in the can, ready to go, and then like 6 months beforehand, um, all that hubbub with what's his face, Short Round's actor, because he won Best
Oh,
Supporting Actor.
K.A. Kwan.
Okay, Kwang, yeah.
Yeah.
There's all that hubbub, and then they get the
Oh, they
the
should have stuck him in the movie.
the photo shoots with
I
him and
know.
Harrison and
And
stuff,
he,
and
he he came to the Dial of Destiny premiere and surprised Harrison again,
right.
coming up behind him and everything. I love seeing the warmth of their reunions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now it's happened more than once, but like just the first one to the succeeding ones, it's so great to see them again.
Yeah, and
And
I get the
so,
sense that is very genuine. I feel like all
hmm
of the attention from the press is disingenuous, but I believe that they're like what you see when they're reconnecting and meeting
yeah,
up those several times is very genuine and stuff. But how pissed is Disney that they weren't able, like, they're like,
cash
oh
in on it.
shit, we should have had Short Round show up,
I know,
not
right? And also, yeah, and not some chick, um, or like what's the kid's name in this
John.
movie?
It is 2023. You can't say chick anymore.
Yeah, so I'm stuck in the past. Um, no, but like, I mean, the thing is, as we know, it's now been out for about 3 weeks. It's not been doing great at the box office. It's not doing bad, but it's not making its gigantic budget
It
back.
it by most accounts might be the biggest flop Disney's ever had, and that includes John
Oh,
Carter. That and that's
oh, I heard
that's I
about
think
what a flop that was.
that's the biggest flop ever.
Oh
It might
man.
be,
Well,
and
yeah.
a big portion of that is like COVID and delays and stuff.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you know, these studios choose to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
I wonder what Harrison's paycheck was on the movie. Obviously, back in the 90s, he was the highest paid actor in Hollywood back in 1995, I believe. He probably held that title through most of that decade. And he was the first actor, I distinctly recall, to get a $20 million paycheck back
Yeah.
in, I think it was for, I don't know if it was The Devil's Own or if it was something in the late 90s. He took a 20 million cut, and I think the only other person next to him in that line was like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. But
Jim Carrey got pretty big too.
yeah, he got pretty big there for a while until he made Man
Went
on the Moon and
crazy.
started
Literally,
taking mushrooms.
literally went
Um,
crazy.
but going back to what I was saying about Harrison, who knows how much he made for this, but the thing is, I'm okay with that because Harrison is Harrison. It's not the same movie if you get anybody else. He is the main reason to go see this. And if no one listening to this has seen Dial of Destiny, I highly recommend you go see it because for all we know, this might be Harrison's last big blockbuster. We don't know. He's saying he's not doing Indy again, unless ka-ching ka-ching, he's like, oh, maybe I'll do another one. But I tend to believe what he says if he says this is the last time he's putting the hat on. So
Okay, I will lay out my idea for the next Indiana Jones movie that will fix everything, and
please do.
all parties involved will be happy.
All right.
I will not until we're done talking about Dial of Destiny though.
No,
Oh,
well, we more or less are. I think I
you
covered
you're
everything I
done. Okay.
needed to.
Well, let's see. Is there anything? Did I have any major problems? No. Was it okay? Yes. When I
I think
sit
it's the
down.
weakest indie movie.
Oh
I
well,
I
I
do
mean,
like
come on.
Crystal Skull more. I really enjoy Crystal Skull as time goes on, and like
It's more
no
fun.
joke, I do.
It's more fun.
It's Spielberg.
I mean,
But
what was the big um action set piece that Indy was actually involved in Dial of Destiny? It was a tuk tuk chase. That's it.
or the horse race through New York City.
Oh yeah, I guess.
But to me, those were so full of CG that I mean, yeah, and I know Crystal Skull had a ton too, but the thing is, I don't know. There's something about the modern CG chases that because 90% of it is not really there, there's an element of you're not in the moment as deeply as you are, like say watching the minecart chase in Temple of Doom. Because even though those are models for a lot of the long shots, they're actually there. They're real physical models.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's kind of like one of those things.
Um, it just didn't do it for me. All the action set pieces in the movie just kind of they were okay. They
Yeah, that's
just
how I feel.
they were just everything was just it was okay. It was serviceable. I mean the
Right.
initial one back in World War II, that was good.
That was really enjoyable. I thought it was a little dark when they're on top of the train, like the filter was kind of, but that might have been the screen we are watching it on. It's an older theater. I need to
Yeah.
see it. I need to see it on an HD TV and see how it looks. I thought initially it might have that Solo kind of filter for the night scenes in Solo, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh no, it's hard to see this.
Okay. Um yeah, I let's see. I guess very quickly, I really liked the references to Temple of Doom in the movie.
Mhm.
Um I wasn't really happy with the whip in the movie. It's kind of
Not
weird to
enough.
even bring it up, but like the only time he used the whip is when he was like whipping the people at that auction to
Yeah,
keep them
yeah,
back. It was kind of like a joke. It was almost like
yeah.
making a joke of the whip
He
in
should have
general.
he should have whipped some random chick and pulled her over, and then kind of like in Temple of Doom.
Oh, well, you know what? Okay. Let's just get into my idea for Indiana Jones 6.
Okay, let's do it.
because that's a pretty good segue. So, okay, so I mean, we didn't really do a spoiler warning, but movie's been
It's
out
okay.
for
No one
however long.
cares.
the the 10 people that listen to this have probably already
Yeah,
seen
no
the
one
movie
gives a
anyway.
shit.
So, you know, Miriam's back. You know, they reconciled all that stuff. Mutt's
Yeah,
dead. Okay,
that was a moving scene.
that
I
was
have to
really good.
say,
That
it
was
was
the
that might be the best scene.
that saved the movie literally for me. I mean, that really any complaint I had about the movie was softened or resolved with that
Yeah,
scene.
and who would have thought that the death of Shia LaBeouf would make anybody genuinely emotional?
I know. Well, you know, it helped as I had just watched Crystal Skull like the day
Same.
before
Yeah,
seeing the movie. So,
yeah.
anyway, so Miriam's back. Indy 6, Willie Scott and Short Round show up together. Okay,
Hmm.
you get them
Package
coming back,
deal.
package deal, and it turns out that Indy and Willie had a kid.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
and they got to go rescue him. Okay, so it's not, you know, the son coming in and having to rescue
yeah,
the
yeah,
mom. You turn that around, you flip it around. Now he's got to save his other son, you
yeah,
know, because Mutt's dead,
yeah.
but it's okay. He's got another son. And then who is his son? Chris Pratt.
Oh, yes.
So
I could see that.
so you bring Chris. That's how you bring Chris Pratt into the Indiana Jones franchise.
And it's in the
As
70s now.
it's yeah.
So
Um,
now they're fighting the lack
well, I mean, if they
of
wanted to do
oil at gas stations.
yeah, the big big set piece will be in Saudi Arabia. Um, the it could be the 80s because I think technically they've made Indy younger than Harrison
They
is in
they
the
did.
last two movies, so
They
they
did.
could go as far as the 80s. So okay, so Pratt gets brought in. He's the son. He's not a Henry Jones.
Yeah.
He's Indiana Jones. So he
An
is
actual
Indiana,
Indiana.
and then you could keep the name. He's
Ah, I
not.
see.
He's Indiana Jones, but he's not Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
keep the name,
yeah.
and because that was the big thing when like right before Indy 5 came out, I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago. People were asking like Pratt because I there was some hubbub about Pratt
Hmm.
maybe should take over. They
I
reboot the
remember.
franchise and stuff, and he was always like, "Ah, there's no way I could do that. Like it's you
Yeah,
know." And then Harrison would say the same thing. You know, Harrison's like,
yeah.
I'm fucking Indiana Jones. Fuck everybody, everybody
Fuck
else,"
everybody.
which I get. I really respect that. So anyway,
Yeah.
um, so they come back, and then, um, you know, then you could have movies continue with Pratt and what's his face as Short
Hey,
Round.
hey, Kwan.
Hey, Kwan. You keep him around, and he is the consistency and continuity link with the older movies. And then you could have them, it'd be like a
Mm.
buddy thing because it wouldn't be all on Chris Pratt, right?
Yeah,
And his indie character, you know, you got Short Round there too.
that's true.
And you know, in the movie
Yeah.
you could delve into like, you know, Short Round's background and stuff, and there could be like interesting interactions and like rivalry between Short Round and Indy Junior, I guess you'd call him.
Right.
You know, regarding Indy senior and stuff, and so that's how you do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Or you could have potentially Vic Armstrong come in, who was the guy that played the guy that gave Indy his hat in Last Crusade.
Yes.
You have him come in and take the hat back, and he's like, because I'm looking on Wikipedia here, and he's still alive. He's 76, and he was, I think they cast him in that as that character because I think he was Harrison's stunt person on all the previous movies, Temple of
That's
Doom and
that's
Raiders.
what I was wondering because when I rewatched Last Crusade, I was like, you know what, that's got to be like his stunt double or something because it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, and they had worked, I think, I'm looking at his credits. He had, well, actually here, oh, it's kind of listing his stunt credits and everything. But yeah, he was Harrison's, oh, for Return of the Jedi. He was even Harrison's stunt double. And then Raiders, and he was a bus driver in American Werewolf in London also.
Ooh.
There's a couple things there, but a lot of stunt credits, especially from the 2010s and 2000s. He did a bunch of things, including on The Amazing Spider-Man. He was a second unit director. Anyway, Vic Armstrong, look up his credits. Very interesting. But yeah, I just thought that'd be funny. He takes the hat back. It's mine again. But
The
yeah,
only thing I don't know is that would Short Round still be wearing a Yankees hat? He'd be wearing a new Yankees hat, or at least a 70s, 80s Yankees
it'd be
hat.
funny if he switched over to the Dodgers or something. If it's the early 80s, the Dodgers went World Series in 81. He's like, I'm switching teams. I switched teams, Indy.
You could have a scene he's playing cards and stuff. It'd be great.
I know. Oh, there's so much you could do.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Disney has bought the IP with Indy. I mean, it was part of the package with Star Wars back in 2012, and I know they want to do more with it. And there was rumors that they were going to work on a Disney Plus series that might tie into all of this. And currently, that's canceled, or it's not on the table. Currently, they've changed their plans. But clearly, they need to do something with Indiana Jones, but they might not be able to with Harrison. So who knows?
I say it only half joking. I honestly feel like that could be the way that you could continue the series.
Yeah.
Either as a series or a series of movies, and have everybody satisfied and potentially everyone happy.
I personally think it's a great idea, and I hope they pursue something like this. I would be okay with that. Or they could go the de-aging route and just have Harrison provide his voice.
Hey, if he
I
wants to
don't
keep doing
know.
that, I'm all for it. It worked out pretty well.
It
Worked
was
out well
pretty
enough for
great.
me.
And then we could just be in the World War II era indefinitely if we want to. Which is kind of funny though, if you have like this 85-something-year-old guy, his voice coming through a 40-something
That's just
character.
fine. You give him, it's Hollywood. Give him some cocaine. He'll
gargle some hot water.
He'll perk right up. I know Kennedy she was asked, and she did mention, like, as far as the future of the series and stuff. I believe that this was like right before the movie came out and everybody knew how much money it lost. But
Yeah.
she mentioned, like, whether the series continues with Short Round or Helena. She would say, we would never say never.
Yeah.
The way she said it didn't sound right. It was almost like
Yeah.
she wasn't saying that phrase right, but I don't know.
Yeah, she's been kind of nebulous about things in the past, so.
Anyway, I would say one last thing about the movie. It was disappointing that they had the Paramount logo, presumably an obligation from the fact that I think Paramount was supposed to get 5 movies in total. That was the original deal.
Oh, right.
So I think they had a cut, some sort of slice of the Indy pie with Dial of Destiny, and they did have to have the logo in there, but they did not capitalize and do one last transition from the Paramount
They gave it
logo
to the Lucasfilm logo instead.
Yeah, which is like, okay, it's a rectangle. That's great. Like, I mean, I appreciate that they did it at all.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like not seeing the 20th Century Fox fanfare before the sequels.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Don't get me started on that.
It's kind of like that.
They spent
It's
20, however many billion it was. I can't even remember. I think it was 20 billion for Fox, for 20th Century Fox. The deal was done.
Yeah.
They had it. They owned it. They could have added the fanfare
to at least Rise of
Skywalker, but they didn't do it. And it's like, you fucking assholes.
All to satisfy us pathetic autistic people.
Just a drop of water, just a bone, a small little bone, a crumb, please. Anything, whatever.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyway, it was fine. It was okay. If I sit down and watch an indie movie, of course, it'll be the last one I put on. It's always gonna be Temple of Doom. But
But whatever, and movies are always reassessed. It might be worse later on, it might be better. Like, hey, Crystal Skull, I'm genuinely enjoying it a lot. And that was not the case 10 years ago. So you never know with movies. And it's just like any other media or art. Things get reassessed. You go through things in life, things get better, things get worse. I've disliked Star Wars movies that I initially loved and vice versa. So yeah, we'll just see what happens with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. But it's still in theaters. Go see it if you haven't. Enjoy the moment while it's here.
they need every dollar they can get.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, go see it. It's decent. All right, so The Mandalorian season 3 came out this I think it was February or March 1st, somewhere around there. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a refinement and a continuation of the fun that Mandalorian already was for 2 seasons now, plus the Book of Boba Fett. And I thought it was great, and I loved it. And I loved the cameos and the action and the humor and the references. And I feel like when it was all done, I went online and kind of read more reviews and saw videos, and I feel like I was kind of alone in my assessment of loving it. I feel like people generally feel like Mandalorian has run its course or has gotten corny, or they don't like Grogu and they think he's just drawing the story away from Din. I don't know. What do you think?
I've read the same thing. Um, I think again, if it's a spectrum, I think that Mandalorian season 3 has it's leaning more toward Book of Boba Fett than it is Mando season 1.
Hmm.
Um, for better or for worse, it doesn't. I'm not saying that's good or bad either way.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it's I think that's the feeling.
It's more
Also,
more Velveeta.
I don't know if people have thought about it much or brought it up much. I certainly haven't seen it, but I could see an issue of. I know that some people have criticized the fact that Grogu is back at all. Like he sort of he went away
Yeah,
and was sort of his story, at least temporarily,
yeah,
way more temporarily than I think people
yeah.
thought. His story was concluded with Mando at the end of season 2,
Hmm.
but then he came back immediately afterward, basically. So
And
there,
for people that didn't even watch the Book of Boba Fett, they're really confused.
oh,
And
dude, I can't even imagine.
there's already been issues with that and articles about family members that are just casuals and they watched it and they're like, "What the hell?" And
Honestly,
I knew that was going to be a problem.
yeah, I wouldn't expect people to skip Boba Fett, Book of
The
Boba
book, the
Fett.
book, the book.
Um,
Yeah,
but I suppose that they did because
it's
I
just going
mean,
to recommend them. Hey, you
well,
finish season two,
the joke
watch
is
season
that
three.
Book of Boba Fett was Mandalorian season 2.5, but
Yes.
maybe they actually should have called it The Mandalorian colon the Book of Boba Fett. Maybe. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
honestly, to tell people like, hey, you need to watch this.
It was handled not right, and especially because even at the time we loved those particular Mando episodes of book. We loved those, but then we didn't think the rest of it was that great, and everyone thought that, and it was like it just felt like they were slapped in to kind of upgrade Book of Boba Fett a little bit,
Yeah,
and
I wonder if that was a decision that was made behind the scenes after the fact.
I
Like
know, I
if that was a
know.
directive that came down, like, hey, the only merchandise that's selling is fucking Grogu, so you better bring him back. And they're like, oh shit,
You
okay.
know, what's ironic though? People talk about the commercialization of Disney and all this stuff, and I mean, it's weird though because like Grogu, he's no more or less popular than R2D2 has been for like 45 years. So it's
Yeah.
like Star Wars has always had these little things, whether it's Ewoks or R2 or Porgs or whatever. There's always a thing to sell shit to little kids and girls and cutesy little things.
Well,
And
listen,
to me, it's just
Disney
part of it. I don't care. It's a thing, you
Disney
know?
didn't buy the franchise for $4 billion
To not make
for
money.
for movies. They made it. They bought it for merchandise. I mean, that's how Lucas
Yes.
made all his money. So
And if that means that I can buy a 12-inch action figure of Grogu riding around inside an IG-11 mech, then so be it. They will have my dollars. So I loved all the scenes with that. That
and
was hilarious. And yes, it was corny as hell, and it was very Terminator-esque when IG-11 was crawling on the floor trying to kill Din in
that was pretty
Grief's
funny.
office. I mean, everything with Grief. Also, the little droid's holding up his cape, and or not even a cape at this point. It's like a king's, pageantry whole deal. But
Well, I joked to you that what I want next is the Book of Grief.
I know, I
Like
know,
I want a series just focusing on him on Navarro.
I wouldn't mind it. So, but I was very surprised though that everything wrapped up with Mandalore so fast and Moff Gideon. It was like I thought they were going to stretch this into another season.
I thought so too.
And it was just like, whoa, like, and he might not be dead. They've even, Giancarlo Esposito has said, he had a death that you can't really quite tell because he's just like descends into flames. I mean, if Darth Maul can survive, they made that to where like anyone can now.
Oh, dude, clearly. I mean, come on.
But yeah,
Hey,
thanks,
hey,
Lucas.
if Palpatine can survive,
Yeah, I know. I
then
know.
anyone can survive anything.
Right. But I do feel like that the whole Mandalore arc was wrapped up so fast. I did enjoy the Bo-Katan. I did like that she had more depth and we were learning more about her. And I like that the show it's called The Mandalorian, but it's not necessarily referring to Dan at this point. You could perceive it as representing the Mandalorian culture as a whole, or at least maybe the ragtag group that comes together with the help of Bo-Katan and Dan and the other ones. I feel like it's an all-encompassing title now, which is an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, that
So
might also be people's complaint is that they would rather the show focus more on just um, Din
yeah,
versus anyone else.
that is the main criticism I'm seeing. However, while valid, I think that is a valid thing. To me, it's just whatever. Who cares? I mean, but again, I'm not the typical Star Wars fan. I'm like an 8-year-old with how easy to please I am.
Mm-hmm.
So my opinion really holds no water at all.
Right.
But I just love it for how fun it was, and that's what I like about Mandalorian. As dark and depressing and as nihilistic as Andor is, I love the shift back to fun Star Wars. It's good. It's a nice change of palette.
Yeah. I didn't really have any major issues with the season. I thought it was pretty good.
It was fun. It was very fun.
It
We got
was
to see
fun.
Pelion in a hologram.
Yeah. That again, just like Miriam coming back, saving Dial of Destiny, I would say Paleon saved
Yeah,
Mando season 3. Not really. I mean, the season was good
right.
aside, but
And
that
just
was.
hearing Gideon mention Thrawn, ooh, chills.
I know, and how they were just like, "Oh, Thrawn's coming back," blah blah blah. Like, come on, let's
It was
they're so.
almost meta. It was like, where is Grand
I
Admiral
know. Well,
Thrawn?
they're just so
He is
like,
not here.
you keep talking about Thrawn. Where is he? Come on, like let's get this thing going.
I know, I know.
What do you think that they were referring to with Project Necromancer or whatever?
People have been
I think it was Palpatine.
People have been speculating if it means Palpatine or if it means Snoke being the like cloned puppet thing of
Oh, but I
Palpatine.
mean, yeah, same
I
difference.
The same thing, right? I think it has something to do with Palpatine in some way. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
So I don't know, but I like the title. I like the name of it, and it sounds cool, and it sounds like a interesting Imperial project, secret project. So
maybe
who
it's
knows?
maybe it's Sauron on some planet. It's like the Hobbit. What was it? He was because he was the necromancer, right? When he was in
Yes.
those ruins or whatever.
That was his title during that time period, which
Yeah.
Rush wrote a song about. Well, at least they used that title, but
Oh,
a very similar thing.
fuck. You mean I opened up a segue for a Rush mention?
Yes, you
God
did.
damn
You
it.
did. Now I need to mention Jason Fry and Kevin J. Anderson, how they were
Okay,
friends with
okay.
Neil Peart. Yes, Rush. But no, I just thought it is a cool title, and I like that the Empire, even though they are warlords at this point, and they are kind of split off into their own factions, it's giving me definitely Dark Empire vibes. The fact that they're working together and having these like meetings and hologram, and it gives you that Bantam era feel.
It
You know,
does. Yeah, it
it's
does.
like, oh, this is cool.
It scratches
So
that itch. I just wish, again, this is always my one of my chief complaints with anything that's made now post Return of the Jedi is that we know what the end of the road is, and it's not particularly satisfying,
it's the
right?
Lego Holiday Special with Ray training Finn and going through a portal.
God, I totally forgot that
That's the end of
existed.
that
I
road.
totally forgot that existed. Um, yeah, so I mean it looms like a shadow, right? But
Oh, everything we built here.
until God willing, Ahsoka jumps through that world between worlds or
I
whatever
know.
and fixes everything.
Which ties right into our next topic
Right.
of
Well, before we get into
anything
that,
else about Mando.
um, no, I mean
I
it was fine. It was good.
I
There's a
think
lot
I
of good
more or
stuff.
less it was fun, and that's the main takeaway I had from it. There was that one episode in the middle which had the Imperial officer in her rehabilitation on Coruscant and all that. And that episode, everyone kind of complained at the time, "Oh, it's so different. This isn't, it was bookended with Mando and Bo-Katan at the beginning of the episode and at the end to give you a little, connection." But I felt like that episode was an interesting change of pace, and ironically, it felt like Andor because it was kind of nihilistic, and they were kind of stuck in this like depressing Imperial Center New Republic propaganda, shoved in their faces, and all these tests, and I don't know. It was an interesting episode, and it certainly was an important part of the plot because it
It
set things up.
yeah, and it kind of asks some questions about like what I don't know. Usually Star Wars is very black and white.
And
Um
lately, it hasn't been,
yeah, and like
which I like.
yeah, sometimes well, if it's done well, then I like it.
It
Sometimes
gives
it's not
me
done well,
it
but
gives me that feeling of questioning what you know, kind of like TIE Fighter, again, the PC game. The whole thing that was groundbreaking about TIE Fighter at the time was that we never saw things through the eyes of the Empire as a person taking part in crushing terrorists and
yeah,
bringing
yeah.
order to the galaxy. And now we're kind of getting that in bite-sized chunks through other media. And I think people that are kind of more traditional Star Wars fans, like OT people, I think they're not liking that. I think it's mostly those kinds of probably casuals, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of just highlights how incompetent the Republic is, or the New Republic, I
Yes.
should say.
Yeah.
And but the whole like Pershing getting
Brain fried.
brain fried is it was kind of like,
That was
whoa,
depressing.
that's weird. I wonder
I
if they're
know.
gonna go somewhere with that.
Yeah. Hopefully, we don't see him as a vegetable in a repulsor chair
Oh jeez,
down the
yeah.
line,
He's gonna be like
drooling.
Captain Pike in Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. I know. Well, and
original
it's a
original Captain Pike
original
from the
Captain Pike.
60s
Yes,
series.
I saw the pilot episode when he was normal, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked Pershing a lot, actually. He was very sympathetic Imperial, and I think he was genuinely doing things for the better of the galaxy, actually.
Yeah, I
So
just I really want I want to explore that stuff, especially like Pershing and cloning and his
yeah.
motivations and what
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff, but I don't know if they're hamstrung by what eventually happens with like Palpatine, you know, and the clones and Snoke and all that stuff. I don't know if they can't do anything super interesting with it because they're all they're really doing is just kind of backfilling and
Hmm.
explaining stuff that comes in the sequels, you know. So
Let me put it
so
this
it's
way.
like, are we going to get something interesting, or are they just uh, justifying after the fact what's going to happen in the sequels,
Right.
basically?
Let's do an experiment. Let's go back to 1997, where the furthest point on the timeline for Star Wars Legends then, prior to the New Jedi Order, was the Young Jedi Knights books. They were the furthest point on the timeline, about 20 years after Return of the Jedi. Those were the endpoint that everything else was backfilling up to for that. So you got Jason and Jaina training under Uncle Luke at Yavin 4,
Mm-hmm.
having their adventures. A lot of fans felt like those were corny and whatever, and they'd be disappointed if they thought, oh yeah, it's just all leading to that. Who cares? And but what the I think the key thing to remember is a lot of times it's the journey, not the destination. I think it's very true. It's not just a trite, thing you see on memes. I think it's true because there's a lot of fun stuff we've already experienced through The Mandalorian. I think Ahsoka is going to be fun. There's nothing in the trailers to me that indicates it's going to be bad per se. Um, and we have like 30 years of time to explore here. That's a lot of time. I mean, the original trilogy only spans 4 years. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. And I think it's unfair to poo-poo everything just because, well, we know where it all ends up. Maybe that might be true for certain characters like Han, Luke, and Leia. It kind of is a bummer when it's not always going to be the best for them down the line. But who knows? Maybe we'll see some interesting story points that explain decisions they made and things they did down the line.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm not poo-pooing anything that's coming out because of that. I'm just wondering if, they're kind of painted into a corner because of
It's
it.
Kathleen
So,
Kennedy pulling the strings and laughing at everybody
right,
as she
right.
does it.
Anyway, the only other thing is my only real disappointment was not seeing Fen Rao show up,
Yeah,
Kevin McKidd. That would have been
yeah,
really kind of neat if he
yeah,
got to reprise that role in live
yeah.
action.
Right.
But there's always season 4, so we'll
There's
see.
season 4. And presumably, Ahsoka is probably going to pick up right after season 3 on the timeline, after Mando, because they're all kind of connected in that 5 years after Andor kind of period.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, let's talk about the Ahsoka trailers.
Yes.
There's been two now. There was a teaser about a minute and a half, and then there was a 2-minute trailer, which used some of the same footage, but was more or less new scenes. Also, what do you think of these?
They're good. I'm excited. About as excited as any other Mandalorian verse shows that have come
Mm-hmm.
out in seasons. I'm super excited to see Thrawn.
Yeah.
Ray Stevenson looks, especially in the last trailer where we actually got to see him say something. I'm
Yes,
really intrigued by his character. Was it Balin or something?
I think so.
Um, Unfortunately, though, it's oh man, it's such a bummer that he passed away because
Yeah,
aside
I
from
know.
aside from Star Wars, he was really good in Rome. He was
Hmm.
really good in Punisher Warzone and the other stuff that he showed up in.
Yeah, I was not really familiar with him like you were, but his role in this does look very cool. I initially almost thought, is that Jorah Sabath? Just because, older Jedi, gray hair. But no, he's not playing Sabath. He is some kind of dark Jedi though, and he appears to have that female apprentice, which is interesting. So now we're really delving into Bantam vibes. We got Dark Jedi running around
I know, right? The best would be if they actually refer to themselves as
as Dark
Dark
Jedi.
or Gray Jedi, maybe. But
Great Jedi.
I mean, I guess
I
their
know.
lightsabers weren't red. People have pointed out it's kind of orange, so
I
I wonder
don't
if that's
know if
a.
that's just the filter. You know, it's like the Obi-Wan Kenobi sabers being super blue.
Oh my
Like,
god,
is that
dude!
just a weird filter, or is that like? But even Luke's lightsaber on the Falcon when he's training is almost white. You know, because of the cameras and everything. So, it's one
listen,
of those weird
listen.
things.
These movies have been coming out for what,
Nearly
46,
50 years.
46 years, almost 50 years. It's 2023. They've gone from, you
Luke has
know,
a white saber.
they've gone from rotoscope to digital to
To back.
practical and
Yeah,
everything in between, and they still can't get the
can't quite
colors
get it.
consistent and right.
I know. I feel like the sequel trilogy, they look great. I have no complaints with them in that. It's just the recent Disney Plus stuff where it's been kind of weird. But
Yeah, when they're practical, it doesn't work.
yeah, it's just kind of weird. But anyway, I was super, super nerding out and excited. I mean, first of all, I love that this is a quasi sequel to Rebels. So we got Sabine coming back. We got Ezra having to be found, presumably with Thrawn at some point, and kind of where Rebels left off. And then we get to see what's Ezra's planet, Lothal, you know, in live action and Loth Cats. But to see an E-wing and to see Ahsoka flying an E-wing, I was like, oh my god.
I love how excited you get for a
Oh,
fucking E-wing.
a fucking E-wing, and that's from Dark Empire.
Uh
And
huh.
I think I'm particularly excited because even in Legends, E-wings weren't used very much. It was like Dark Empire 2, and then I think they might have popped up, I think in the Black Fleet Crisis books. Like
Yeah,
just
they'd always just fall back to X-wings though.
exactly. And it always bugged me that like even in Legends there wasn't a progression of ships. Like they had a couple here and there. They had K-wings and stuff, but like you'd read about these battles like 30 years after Indoor, and it's like they're still flying fucking X-wings. It's like, come on. And so I like that we're just seeing it's an EU nugget. It's a cool looking ship, and I just love it. And I was excited for that. So, but I mean, it's just amazing. We're seeing live action Thrawn, played by Lars Mikkelsen, and you know, it's cool that they got him to do the character after he voiced it on Rebels for 2 or 3 seasons or whatever. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited. More for this than anything else like in the last year or so. I was very excited for Andor. This is my other big thing that I'm really pumped for.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, yeah, I'm just looking forward to something fun and just being classic Star Wars. And I assume we're going to see Luke at some point, and who knows how this is going to expand the story of like Ahsoka and Luke and Anakin, and are we going to see flashbacks with Hayden Christensen? Who knows?
There are rumors.
There are rumors,
There are
but
rumors.
yeah,
Um yeah, my only complaint about the trailer is when Ahsoka says heir to the empire.
does it feel like it's jacking off the audience?
It's you you have you are doing more than just tugging on my member berries by saying that. Um
Yeah, yeah. I didn't
it's
really care. It is kind of corny.
it's
It's
just it's just
yeah,
it's funny because it's like
it is a jack off.
it's the joke of when they say the name of the movie in the movie, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
And most of the time it's not it's natural to say whatever the name of the movie is in the movie, unless
Right,
it's like Lord of the Rings, where they're like, oh,
right,
this is some Fellowship of the Ring,
right,
which
right.
obviously they don't do. But and this isn't called Heir to the Empire. It's just like a very on the
Inspired
nose,
by.
like, where
Yeah,
this, Thrawn and Heir to the Empire and all that stuff. I don't know. It was
I
just
see what you're
funny.
saying.
It was just
I see what
funny.
you're saying.
It's not
I
really a
brushed it
complaint.
off. I brushed it off because I did think briefly as like, that's a little corny, but whatever. It also sounds kind of cool. I can see both sides to it, but I was not personally affected by her saying that. I was like, oh, okay, haha, she said it, cool. And then I
Right. I
moved
mean,
on.
that was my actual reaction.
And that's the kind of things I have to explain to Nicole as we watched. I'm like, she is referencing the 1991 expanded universe
Okay,
novel by
okay,
Timothy Zahn.
comic book guy.
I love like being that guy though, that I get to say those things. It's kind of fun. But
Now I will say that I will have a genuine problem if she says Heir to the Empire, but no one says Dark Force Rising or The Last Command
I
in
know
it. Because if you say the first book, you
you
need
gotta
to say
say.
the other two.
Yeah, I know.
And if you really want to commit, you got to do the other two books too, the duology that came out.
The Hand of Thrawn duology.
Yeah.
The
But
specter from the past. The vision from the future. There was speaking of referencing titles, I think in the Dark Empire audio drama, and it's only in the audio drama, one of the characters does say to Palpatine, like, your Dark Empire. And I always thought that was kind of cool. And so if they ever get to the point in the timeline where they're reviving a live action Dark Empire with a de-aged Ian McDiarmid
oh
coming back as
shit.
the Emperor again,
Shit.
if they get to that point, yeah, sign me up. I'd love to hear them say Dark Empire
Well,
just for that.
that is natural, and in fact, it's probably pretty natural to say Heir to the Empire in the Ahsoka series.
Yeah, it's fine
It's only funny because we know what it
because
means.
we're nerds.
But it's the other funny thing too. You mentioned Dark Empire. That is a very contentious series.
It
A lot of
is.
people
It
didn't like
is.
it. I always liked it, but
I've recently been falling asleep to the audio drama a lot again, as I sometimes do. Sometimes I go a long time, I don't hear it, then I listen to it again, and it's weird. It's like, not to go off on too long a thing, but it's got these really high concept things that are huge, like the Emperor coming back, and even Boba Fett, which was new at the time, and then you got Anakin Solo being born at the end of Dark Empire 2. And it's weird. It has these high concept things. It has this artwork from Cam Kennedy that kind of harkens to the Return of the Jedi original trilogy vibe, the way the color is, and it's got this stuff, but then it has like this really corny, like just throwaway, like fluff in this is in the story that just doesn't really make any sense, or characters are just like watered down and not thinking right. And
yeah.
I guess in that sense it works as a comic book, because comics often have to be kind of fluff. They're just kind of throwaway things, but it's weird. People, I remember back in the 90s, people were saying Dark Empire should have been a novel instead of a comic, but I don't know. I don't know if it would have been the right
No,
thing,
it
but
needed to be a comic because comics are easy to take it or leave it. Like
yeah,
it's very
yeah.
easy to I can take it and integrate it into canon in my head and everything, or
I
I could just
think
ignore it if you
I
don't
think
like it.
people were a little bit confused when they read the Jedi Academy trilogy, and then it's referencing Luke turning to the dark side like a year earlier, and they're like, "Wait a second, what novel was that in?" And then they're
Right.
flipping through their reference guides, going, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
But that was like casuals. That was like teenagers that were just jumping in.
Yeah,
So
fucking casuals.
fucking casuals, Jesus
But it's
Christ.
funny the thing, I mentioned that it was contentious. Perhaps, maybe the people in charge, when they were looking at story ideas and stuff, and I don't know if, I mean, I can't imagine JJ doing this. He probably just came up with this crap on his own, just by happenstance. But if he was
Mhm.
looking at ideas for the Rise of Skywalker and saw the idea of a resurrected Palpatine, maybe he should have looked at the reception from the fans. Um, as
Yeah,
far as
yeah.
what ideas to use and not use, and maybe Disney should have looked at the Thrawn trilogy as a well to tap earlier
Instead
than
of now.
a decade after buying the goddamn franchise.
That's very
But
true. I think you put it very well. And
anyway, it looks good. I'm
yeah,
excited.
it looks fun. It looks fun, and we'll give a longer review for Ahsoka when it's done and dusted and it's out. And I can't foresee the future. We're not going to be recording as often as we did like last year. It's still going to be little chunks here and there, but we will cover it around the time it comes out. And I've got a Galaxy's Edge trip coming up in just a little over a week, so probably on the next episode or sometime after, we'll talk about my trip there. And you've been there.
Yes.
How many times?
Countless. The past,
20?
you know, all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the last time when my pass ran out, I went one more time to Disneyland, and I knew my pass was running out, so I'm like, I'm gonna go on Smuggler's Run
Mhm.
a bunch of times. I think I went in the single rider line, and I went on it
Yeah.
like 7 times in a row. And that
Good
is
times.
a really good ride. It is worth
Is it?
going 7 times in a row on. Yeah,
Ooh,
it's a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll be more or less living in Galaxy's Edge while Nicole and her brother and her nephew go off and do other things after they're sick of it and they want to see the rest of the park. But
Yeah.
I'll squeeze in as much as I can, and I've purposely been avoiding some of the tie-in media that goes with it. But I'm gonna read some of those comics before I go and see how much I can squeeze in and kind of squeeze it out like a sponge, that whole thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, I was avoiding all the halcyon media, so you know, as I was
Galactic Star Cruiser.
saving all my pennies to go on a $5,000 hotel trip, but I guess Disney saved me money. They're shutting it down, so.
And there's your news on Galactic Star Cruiser at the end of our episode instead of the beginning. I guess that was the other newsworthy thing in recent months.
I don't think anyone that could afford it didn't care.
Yeah, absolutely.
And anyone that cared couldn't afford it.
Very good point. I think that about does it for this episode. I have nothing further to add on Ahsoka. We'll see it when it comes out. And when we get to the next one, we'll get to the next one. But it should be sooner rather than later. We're going to be continuing Jedi Outcast and wrap that game up again. And yeah, so in the meantime, be sure to catch future episodes here on our channel on YouTube. And we also have the Facebook page and Instagram as well. Check us out, Star Wars Unfiltered. And I think that's about it. May the Force be with you.
Good night.